Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. Today, we're taking a look at the really extreme contrast in logistics, scale, and safety across the maritime industry right now. We'll start with a factual look at what happens when the very precise routine of river navigation goes wrong, specifically looking at a recent incident at a lock on the Danube.
Right, and from there we're going to unpack the engineering required to drop a 50-meter glass dome onto a next-generation megaship over in Finland.
Yeah, the scale of that is incredible. And finally, we will explore why operators are, currently pouring over $500 million into retrofitting two-decade-old mid-size vessels. So to start us off, let's look at that river environment. It's an environment that really demands incredible precision.
It absolutely does, yeah.
And we saw what happens when that precision is compromised. So on Friday, July 24, there was an early morning safety incident involving the river cruise ship MS Anna Katharina. The vessel was carrying roughly 200 passengers and crew. It was traveling from Bratislava toward the Warsaw region in Austria. And during that transit, it struck a quay wall and the lock gate at Vienna's Freudenau lock.
Yeah, and, river locks are essentially a massive concrete water elevators. So navigating them is a completely routine but highly exacting process for a crew. You only have inches of clearance on either side of the vessel.
Right.
So when an impact occurs in that confined space, the sudden deceleration transfers just a tremendous amount of kinetic energy throughout the ship.
Exactly, and we are seeing the results of that sudden energy transfer in the outcome for the people on board. 14 passengers sustained injuries during the impact.
Really?
Emergency responders treated 8 individuals right there at the scene, while 6 passengers were transported to local hospitals. They were evaluated primarily for back, neck, and chest pain.
Which, makes sense. Those types of injuries align perfectly with a sudden, unexpected stop like that.
Right, exactly. But fortunately, all the hospitalized passengers were discharged within hours, and rescue officials confirmed there were no life-threatening injuries.
That's very good news. And it's also important to note, just from a safety standpoint, that no one went into the water during this event.
Right.
The emergency response was immediate. The Vienna firefighters actually used ladder equipment to safely assist several people right from the vessel's deck. And emergency crews conducted a rapid inspection of the hull right there at the lock.
To make sure it wasn't taking on water, I assume?
Right, exactly. They confirmed the ship remained structurally stable despite the collision. And after that assessment, all the passengers were safely transferred to another river cruise vessel, as well as to alternative onward travel arrangements.
Right, which effectively concluded that specific sailing.
Yes.
Now, photographs from the location showed pretty substantial physical damage to the vessel, specifically the forward section. The bow was basically crushed inward. And when you consider that the MS Anna Katharina is a 135-meter about 443-foot ship, registering at 3,600 gross tons. I mean, that is a massive amount of steel hitting reinforced concrete.
Oh, absolutely. Even at a low speed, 3,600 tons of moving mass carries immense force. But the structural deformation at the bow actually did exactly what it was engineered to do.
Which is to crumple.
Yeah, it crumples to absorb the impact, which protects the watertight integrity of the hull further back.
Got it.
Now, as for how this actually happened, a judicial inquiry is officially underway. The vessel's 49-year-old captain is expected to provide a statement, which is just standard procedure in any maritime investigation like this.
And I understand there's some conflicting information right now regarding the actual cause. Like, early local accounts cited high speed as a factor, but a police spokesperson told the Austrian outlet Voyage that a technical defect is currently being considered as a possible cause.
That's correct. Yeah. No final findings have been issued by the authorities yet. Investigators are going to be pulling data from the ship's navigational systems. They'll examine engine and steering telemetry to determine if there was, say, a mechanical failure, like a loss of reverse thrust, or if human error was the primary factor.
Right. And for now, neither the operator, Scylla AG, nor the programmer for this sailing, Phoenix Rising, has issued a public statement.
Right.
Just to give you a sense of this specific vessel, the MS Anna Katharina is a Swiss-flagged ship built in 2019. It has 90 cabins, capacity for about 180 passengers, and roughly 40 crew members. But I wanted to ask you about the infrastructure impact here, because for our listeners who might be booked on upcoming Danube itineraries, what is the actual operational status of the Freudenau lock? I mean, this is a major bottleneck for river traffic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a critical piece of infrastructure. The lock is actually part of the Vienna Freudenau hydroelectric power plant. And because of the damage from the collision, one of the lock chambers is currently closed and undergoing repairs.
Okay, so it is shut down.
Well, partially. The facility has a dual-chamber design. So while the damaged site is out of commission, river shipping is actively continuing through the secondary lock chamber.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, authorities haven't released a timetable for when the primary chamber will be repaired, but navigational logistics for the Danube haven't been entirely halted.
Right, which is a relief for those upcoming sailings. So it's a stark reminder of the delicate logistics required for river cruising. You have these 135-meter vessels operating with virtually no margin for error. But if we scale up that concept of engineering precision from the river to the ocean, we arrive at our second story. So we're looking at the Meyer Turku shipyard in Finland, which just reached a massive milestone on Royal Caribbean's newest megaship, Hero of the Seas. On July 10th, they completed the hull assembly by lifting the final block into place.
Right, and the timeline for a build of this magnitude just spans years. They laid the keel for this vessel back in September 2025. By mid-January of this year, they began the massive logistical puzzle of cabin loading.
Which is sliding the prefabricated staterooms right into the steel superstructure, right?
Exactly. And with the whole assembly now complete as of July, Meyer Turku's project manager, Kalliaitia, noted that construction is progressing rapidly. The yard is now shifting its focus to the float-out phase and all the prep work required for commissioning before the ship enters service in August 2027.
But before they placed that final hull block, they executed an incredibly complex installation in June. I mean, the lifting of the ship's AquaDome. For some context for you listening, this is a 50-meter wide, 25-meter high dome constructed entirely of glass and steel.
Yeah, it's massive.
It's designed to house an aquatic theater, restaurants, bars, and lounges. And according to the shipyard, no larger single glass and steel component has ever been lifted onto a ship.
It's an absolute marvel of factory logistics, honestly. Elvis Kulovac, he's the foreman handling this specific operation, he explained that the entire evolution required a full 24 hours of prep and execution.
Just for that one lift.
Yeah. While the actual crane lift only took a few hours, the staging, securing, and alignment consumed the rest of that window.
Right, so on that note, why exactly did Kulovac emphasize that virtually no wind was critical for this 24-hour AquaDome operation? Like, what are the meteorological requirements there?
Well, you have to think about aerodynamic drag. When you have a surface area that large 50 meters wide of glass and steel, even a moderate breeze, creates a massive amount of lateral force. The gantry cranes they use at Meyer Turku, they have strict operational thresholds for wind speed.
Because if a gust of wind hits it, it essentially acts like a giant sail, right?
You hit the nail on the head. If a component of that immense weight begins to twist or oscillate on those crane cables, you risk catastrophic damage. You endanger the shipyard infrastructure, the personnel on the ground, and obviously the structural integrity of the dome itself.
Because it has to be aligned perfectly to the ship.
Exactly, with millimeter precision. You're mating this enormous dome to mounting points on the hull. You can't do that if the load is swaying even a fraction of a degree. Waiting for an absolute, completely calm meteorological window is a non-negotiable requirement.
Wow. It really puts into perspective the sheer scale of Hero of the Seas. This is the fourth ship in the Icon class series. Just to run down the numbers, it measures roughly 365 meters in length, with a beam, the width of the ship spanning 65 to 66 meters. The vessel registers at 250,800 gross tons.
Right, which is just staggering when you contrast that with the 3,600-ton river ship we were just talking about.
Exactly. It's powered by liquefied natural gas, or LNG. Passenger capacity is rated at roughly 5,610 guests at double occupancy, but it can actually scale up to 7,600 passengers at maximum capacity, supported by an additional 2,350 crew members.
And that scale allows them to introduce a lot of new operational concepts alongside the established Icon-class features. So Royal Caribbean is bringing in new venues like the Coconut Cove Pool, the Orleans Parish Supper Club, and something called the Ultimate Family Treehouse Suite.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and these will sit alongside the 8 distinct onboard neighborhoods, the Pearl architectural structure, that massive AquaDome we discussed, and more than 40 different food and beverage locations.
And it follows Icon of the Seas, Star of the Seas, and Legend of the Seas in that class. It's worth noting that Legend of the Seas was just delivered by Meyer Turku earlier this year and is currently sailing its maiden season in the Western Mediterranean. Hero of the Seas, though, will be based at PortMiami for its inaugural program, focusing on 7-night Caribbean and Bahamas cruises.
Right.
The itineraries include calls at Cozumel, Philipsburg, and Royal Caribbean's private destination, Perfect Day at Coco Cay.
Which really highlights a specific logistical reality for the industry. Ships of this 250,000-ton class are heavily restricted in where they can actually dock.
Because they're just too big.
Right, they require massive port infrastructure, very deep channels, and facilities capable of handling up to 10,000 total people disembarking at once. That's why purpose-built destinations like Coco Cay are so vital to their deployment strategy.
Right.
And Royal Caribbean is heavily invested in this specific model. They have a long-term framework agreement established in 2025 that secures their building rights at the Meyer Turku yard through the next decade, which includes 2 more Icon-class vessels slated for delivery between 2028 and 2030.
And that actually brings us to a really interesting intersection in industry strategy. You have these operators lock into framework agreements for these massive megaships through 2030. But as you just mentioned, those ships simply cannot fit into smaller, less developed ports around the world. So how do cruise lines maintain access to those unique, off-the-beaten-path destinations?
Right, you need smaller ships.
Exactly. Which brings us to our third story. The massive capital being injected into legacy mid-size fleets.
Yeah, not every itinerary can support an Icon-class ship, so operators are meticulously preserving their older tonnage. A perfect example is Holland America Line's Zuiderdam. This is an 82,305-ton vessel built back in 2002. It recently departed Boston and is currently operating a 35-night Voyage of the Vikings itinerary. It's a pretty grueling North Atlantic route that will eventually conclude back in Boston on August 20, 2026.
Right, and this sailings is part of their legendary Voyages series, which runs anywhere from 25 to 59 days. This 20-destination itinerary includes calls in Canada, New England, Greenland, Iceland, the UK, Scandinavia, and the Netherlands. It even features an overnight in Rotterdam. But here's the key to your point. It includes stops in places like Red Bay, Kamiut, Husavik, and Douglas in the Isle of Man.
And those are exactly the types of ports we were just talking about. An 82,000-ton ship like Zuiderdam can navigate the smaller harbors and deeper coastal fjords of Greenland and Iceland that a megaship simply cannot approach.
It's just physically impossible for them.
Exactly. That physical size advantage dictates its deployment. After the Viking voyage, Zuiderdam will run between Boston and Quebec City through late October. Then it'll reposition to PortMiami for shorter Caribbean routes before heading to the West Coast in early 2027 to sail the Mexican Riviera and Baja Peninsula.
But keeping a ship built in 2002 operational and competitive through 2027 and beyond, that is not cheap.
No, not at all.
Holland America has confirmed Zuiderdam as the second ship slated for its Evolution refit program. So this is a multi-year project with a budget exceeding $500 million, covering 6 ships across 2 classes. The Italian shipbuilder Fincantieri is executing the work.
And a $500 million investment across 6 ships is just a massive capital expenditure.
Yeah.
Especially for vessels that are already over 2 decades old.
Right.
The Evolution program targets 4 Vista-class ships, so Oosterdam, Zuiderdam, Westerdam, and Noordam, along with 2 signature-class ships, Eurodam and New Amsterdam.
And Oosterdam debuts the first phase in the fall of 2027, but the specifics for Zuiderdam's overhaul have actually already been confirmed. From the passenger side, this refit introduces some highly targeted accommodation upgrades. They're adding a redesigned Pinnacle suite, 2 bridge view suites located just above the navigation bridge, 14 Vista suites, and 32 solo veranda staterooms. They are also doing a general refresh of the existing cabins and adding a grand Dutch cafe, which is going to serve complimentary Dutch snacks along with paid specialty coffees, beers, and spirits.
And the choice of those specific upgrades is entirely data-driven. Beth Bodensteiner, the president of Holland America Line, stated that they've seen strong interest in Bridgeview suites and solo verandas on the Oosterdam, which directly drove the decision to add them to Zuiderdam.
Right, give the passengers what they are already asking for.
Exactly. And the addition of those 32 solo verandas is particularly telling. It really reflects a significant industry shift toward accommodating single travelers without forcing them to pay double occupancy penalties, which, is vital for these longer 35-night exploratory voyages. Bookings for these post-refit Zuiderdam voyages open on July 30th, 2026.
Now, Bodensteiner also mentioned that this Evolution refit includes heavy technical investments. I mean, it's easy for us to focus on the passenger-facing additions like the Grand Dutch Cafe or the new suites, but Fincantieri is essentially opening up the ship to do comprehensive, unseen structural work. So I wanted to ask, could you break down those unseen structural upgrades? What does a technical refit actually entail for a ship from 2002?
Well, that unseen work is the entire reason a $500 million budget is necessary. To keep a 2002 built hull legally and operationally viable today, you have to meet modern regulatory standards. Botensteiner specifically cited power management, propulsion, automation, structural maintenance, and critical equipment.
So to break that down, when they talk about power management and propulsion on an older ship, what are they physically changing in the engine room?
Usually this involves retrofitting the existing engines to burn fuel more efficiently, or installing advanced exhaust scrubbers to meet strict new emissions caps. It almost certainly involves integrating modern shore power connectivity.
Which is what allows the ship to plug into the local electrical grid, right?
Exactly. They plug in and shut down their diesel engines while docked in places like Boston or Rotterdam to reduce local emissions.
And what about the automation and structural maintenance side?
Well, automation upgrades mean ripping out early 2000s analog systems in the engine control room and the bridge and replacing them with modern digital diagnostics and predictive maintenance sensors.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. And as for structural maintenance, the ocean, especially the North Atlantic route, Zuiderdam sails, is an incredibly harsh environment. A ship of that age requires comprehensive steel inspections. So Fincantieri will map the hull to find areas of steel fatigue or corrosion.
And they just cut it out?
Yep, they physically cut out and weld in new steel plates to ensure watertight integrity. Those technical upgrades are what actually buy the vessel another decade of life.
It's just a remarkable financial and operational balancing act. Operators are essentially managing two totally distinct timelines simultaneously right now.
Right, which leaves you with a really critical observation about the modern maritime supply chain.
Right.
The industry is currently locked into a dual mandate. On one hand, operators must allocate immense shipyard resources and $500 million in capital to meticulously strip down and rebuild 82,000-ton legacy ships just to maintain access to smaller global ports.
Right.
But on the other hand, they are concurrently executing 10-year framework agreements to assemble 250,000-ton mega ships that require massive, dedicated infrastructure just to function. The sheer logistical strain of sustaining both of these models at the exact same time, preserving the past while supersizing the future, that will really define the economics of cruising for the next decade.
Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.